On Sunday, December 7th, 2025, the time had once again come for the Dover and Rockaway River Railroad to operate their run of Operation Toy Train over the Dover and Rockaway branch at the High Bridge branch. The contest featured one of TOYX's new boxcars with Phillipsburg Union Tower lettering and one of New Jersey Transit's ex-Central Railroad of New Jersey GP40PH-2s running along forwards. However, fate would not be on 4102's side today as the locomotive unfortunately caught fire in Port Morris later that evening after the conclusion of the Toys for Tots event. However, all the other equipment is safe and sound, and 4102 was the only one damaged, and thankfully the crew was not injured. Aside from that, the day was a great success for the charity, and over 1,000 toys were collected across 4 stops throughout the day, adding on to the successes enjoyed at the other events throughout the season so far. Without further ado, enjoy the video.
150, 40, 30, 20, 10.
Shortly after 10 o'clock in the morning, we see the train rolling across the Rockaway River as it arrives in Rockaway for its first stop of the day, complete with a Jingle Bells horn show as they crawl over the trestle. The lead unit, as mentioned earlier, is New Jersey Transit 4102, built as a CNJ GP40P in October 1968 at number 3675, before becoming NJ.4104 and then NJT4104, before getting its current number when rebuilt to GP40PH-2 specs in the 1990s. In the 2010s, 4102 was converted into a work motor like most of the other ex-CNJ units, having the HEP generator removed and related components welded over, the ditch lights moved up, and bolted-on number boards installed. Built as a GP38 standard in November of 1967, DRRV 2006's storied lineage includes service with original owners Chesapeake and Ohio, then CSX, Chicago and Northwestern, Union Pacific, CEFX, and finally C&D, who purchased the unit in 2019 and placed it in service in November 2020. The unit was rebuilt to GP38-2 specifications by the CNW in the early 1990s. Just after 10:30 a.m., TFT-1 gets rolling toward Dover. I am unfortunately extremely stupid and forgot the very simple fact that cars would be blocking my shot, so I had to improvise. Thankfully, I was able to save it. About 10 minutes later, we watched the train inching its way into downtown Dover. Morris County has done several surveys aimed at relocating the track here to stop the congestion caused by slow-moving freight trains in the middle of town, but so far nothing's come of it. However, we're about to see a prime example as to why track relocation is being considered. If you're wondering why they stopped, it's because somebody parked their car too close to the tracks and they couldn't get through. This happens much more often than you might think, and it put the train about 10 minutes behind schedule. While the train was stopped at its collection point in Dover, I went to Walmart to get some things to donate later. We meet up with the train at Rich Boynton Road near D&R Junction, where the Dover and Rockaway branch connects to the New Jersey Transit Montclair-Boonton line. Next, we see the train arriving at Lake Junction on the overpass at Mill Road in Wharton. Lake Junction connects the Chester Branch, and by extension the High Bridge Branch, to the main line as well. A single covered hopper was sitting parked at Lake Junction when I arrived at the yard, and the crew would have to shove it out of the way. But first, they had to back the train onto the crossover and switch tracks so that they could access the Lake Junction turnout.
About 4 cars. 2 to go, CFT. Off 1. Half. 20 feet. Far enough, CFT 1.
Now we're just west of Fairmont Junction, where the High Bridge Branch splits from the Chester Branch. The train will stop here in Kenville to allow the crew to put DRRV 5303, another GP38-2, on the rear of the Consus so that 2006 and 4102 don't have to be run around to the other side of Flanders and thus saving time. With the consist all assembled, I rushed over to North Hillside Avenue and beat the train by such a small margin that I didn't even have time to set up my tripod. I tried, but ultimately decided against it and went handheld. Next, after meeting up with JP in Ledgewood, we headed over to one of my favorite spots, Cary Road in Roxbury, where I got my first video with my new-to-me DJI Mavic Mini named the Hudson. JP and I both flew our drones out over the swamp east of the crossing, but unfortunately the train was moving too quickly for us to land the drones and get back to Flanders in time. But either way, enjoy my first attempt at a bird's eye view. The 5303 was built in February 1973 as Penn Central 8118 and became Conrail 8118 in 1976. Then, in 1999, it became Norfolk Southern 5303 and wore the NS Thoroughbred paint scheme from around 2000 until it was painted in its current Operation Lifesaver scheme in 2012. In 2019, when NS began leasing the Washington Secondary to C&D's Dover and Delaware River Railroad, 5303 and sister ship 5304 were leased to them by NS and eventually purchased outright by C&D sometime in late 2020 or early 2021. Also, there was a giant teddy bear in 2006's cab for some reason, which was really funny. With darkness gathering, TFT-1 gets going from Flanders about 15 minutes ahead of schedule. 5303 and the TOYX equipment would be cut off in Kenville where they're usually stored, and 4102 would take 2006 and several freight cars that would be placed on Monday's RP-1 down to Rockport. However, unbeknownst to everyone as the train left the confines of Mount Olive Township, trouble was brewing on board the 4102. It would be just shy of 2 hours before Roxbury Township 911 dispatch was alerted that the 4102 had caught on fire. From the information available, it seems that the 4102 was leading whatever freight consist, most likely with 2006 trailing either on the opposite end or right behind it, and the crew must have noticed something was amiss as they approached Port Morris. What happened next is unclear, but the train was stopped at New Jersey Transit's Port Morris Yard, and the 4102 was reported to be on fire at 6:40 p.m. to Roxbury Township 911. The fire department responded promptly and extinguished the blaze. Most importantly, there were no injuries, and I am thankful to God that the crew is safe and that this didn't happen during the event, and all the toys were collected and safely shipped out from Flanders without issue. The 4102 was moved to Dover, and my last source of information said that it was still there as of 7 p.m. on Monday. 2006 was fine and was photographed working Monday's RP1 in Phillipsburg. To my knowledge, 4102 was the only piece of equipment damaged. It really sucks that this had to happen after what was otherwise a very festive and successful day for the charity, but the silver lining is that everyone is okay. Thank you guys for watching, and please let this event be a reminder to do all in your power to stay safe over the holidays. Thanks for watching, may God bless you, and have a good day.